Welcome back, everyone, for another deep dive. This time, we're going to be exploring a story from ancient times that has some pretty relevant insights, I think, for us today. Dusting off some of that old wisdom and seeing how it applies.
Yeah, I love that idea. We're so often focused on all the new stuff, right? The newest technology, the latest trends, and sometimes we forget about all the amazing knowledge that we can gain from looking back.
Yeah, exactly. And for this deep dive, we're going to be journeying all the way back to the time after the Israelites' exodus from Egypt, when they were promised this land flowing with milk and honey, the land of Canaan. But the question we're going to explore today is, how is this land actually divided up amongst the 12 tribes of Israel?
Well, you can imagine it could have been a recipe for disaster. You've got 12 different groups, each with their own needs and desires, all kind of vying for a piece of this promised land.
Right? It sounds like a setup for some serious family drama, ancient style. But what's so fascinating is that the story highlights this system that was designed to ensure fairness. And, maybe even more importantly, the recognition of a higher power.
Absolutely. The Israelites used a lottery system to determine the land allocation. So it wasn't about
Right.
power grabs or strategic maneuvering. It was about acknowledging that there was a divine hand in the process.
So imagine that listener. You're standing there with your fellow Israelites, and the fate of your tribe, your future prosperity, lies in the spin of a lot. That must have taken some serious trust.
Oh yeah, a deep level of trust and humility. They were essentially saying, we're not going to let human ambition or greed dictate this. We're going to surrender to a power beyond our own understanding. And I think in that surrender, there's this profound sense of unity and acceptance.
Okay, so we have this backdrop of divine intervention, trusting in the lottery to divide up the land. But then we're introduced to this really captivating character named Caleb, and he's 85 years old at this point. But the text tells us that he's still as strong as he was at 40.
Now, Caleb wasn't just any Israelite. He had a history, a story that stretches back 45 years, to when the Israelites first approached the Promised Land, after escaping Egypt.
Right, he was one of the 12 spies that were sent to scout out Canaan
Mm,
and bring back a report. I'm sensing a flashback here.
exactly. The spies spent 40 days assessing the land, gathering intel on its people, its defenses, basically trying to get a sense of what the Israelites were up against. But when they returned, 10 of the 12 spies were totally terrified by what they had seen. They described these fortified cities, powerful enemies, and
Giants. Wait, hold on. Actual giants. Like Jack and the Beanstalk giant.
literally giants known as the Anakim. And these 10 spies came back with a message of fear and doubt. They said, we can't possibly conquer this land, we're going to be crushed. They just let fear totally paralyze them.
It's amazing how fear can do that. Make even the most daunting challenges seem insurmountable. It can make us forget our strengths, our potential.
But Caleb, along with Joshua, who we know later leads the Israelites into Canaan, they saw things differently. They acknowledged the challenges. They didn't deny that there were giants, but their response was one of unwavering faith.
So they saw the same giants, but didn't let the fear dictate their actions. It makes you wonder, listener, what giants are we facing in our own lives that make us shrink back in fear? How can we tap into that same kind of faith and courage?
That's a really powerful question to think about. Now back to Caleb. 45 years after that initial scouting mission, the Israelites under Joshua's leadership have now successfully conquered Canaan, and they're in the process of dividing up the land.
And this is where Caleb's story takes this really fascinating turn.
Yeah, he steps forward and reminds Joshua of a promise that God made to him all those years ago, that he would inherit the very land he had walked as a spy. And then Caleb makes this really bold request.
Okay, I'm on the edge of my seat here.
Wait.
What does he ask for?
He asks for Hebron.
Hebron, the place inhabited by those giants, the Anakim. The same giants that scared off 10 of the original spies. Why would he choose that? Wouldn't you think he'd want a more peaceful, fertile piece of land after waiting 45 years?
It's a pretty bold move. Most people are driven by comfort and security, but Caleb, he embodies a different spirit. He's not asking for the easy path. He's requesting the land that represents a challenge. He's essentially saying, I'm 85, I'm still as strong as I was at 40, and I'm ready to claim what God promised me, no matter how difficult it is.
I think that's what's so inspiring about Caleb, his unwavering commitment. Even in the face of adversity, he doesn't let age or the fear of giants stop him from pursuing what he believes is rightfully his. It makes you think, what are we letting hold us back from claiming our own Hebrons? What challenges are we avoiding because they seem too daunting?
That's a question we all need to grapple with. You know Caleb's story. It's this powerful reminder that our potential is often limited not by our circumstances, but by our own fear and self-doubt.
So true. So what was Joshua's response? to Caleb's pretty audacious request.
Well, what's amazing is that Joshua doesn't even hesitate. He recognizes Caleb's lifelong devotion, his courage, his unwavering trust in God, and he grants him Hebron. And it's not just a piece of land, it's a symbol of reward for a life lived in faithful service.
I love that. It's like a testament to the power of persistence and faith. But sometimes faith can feel kind of passive, like we're just sitting back and waiting for things to happen. How does Caleb's story speak to the idea of taking action?
That's a great point. It would have been easy for Caleb to just wait, for God to deliver his inheritance. But instead, he actively reminds Joshua of the promise. He steps forward and claims what he believes is rightfully his.
So it's like he's saying faith without action is incomplete. It's about aligning our desires with our efforts, trusting in a higher power, while also taking the necessary steps to make things happen.
Exactly. And there's another really fascinating layer to this story that I think speaks to the importance of long-term vision and commitment. Remember, he waited 45 years between the time God made the promise and when he finally received his inheritance. Imagine that kind of patience in today's world where we want everything instantly.
It's almost unfathomable, isn't it? We live in a culture where we expect things to happen overnight. And if we don't see results right away, we tend to give up or move on to the next thing.
Yeah, exactly. But Caleb's story teaches us the power of staying the course, remaining committed to our goals. Even when the path ahead seems long or uncertain, it's about trusting the process, having faith that even if it takes longer than we expect, the reward will be worth the wait.
It's like he's showing us that some of the most valuable things in life, the things that bring us true fulfillment, often require time dedication and a willingness to persevere. What do you think about that, listener? What are you working towards? That requires that kind of unwavering commitment and long-term vision.
That's such a powerful question. And, as we kind of shift our focus to the modern day implications of Caleb's story, I think it's important to recognize that. His experience isn't just about conquering physical territory, it's about confronting those giants in our own lives. The fears, the doubts, the limiting beliefs that hold us back from achieving our full potential.
It's about embracing those challenges,
Yeah.
even seeking them out as opportunities for growth and transformation.
Exactly. Caleb didn't shy away from difficulty, he embraced it. And that's a really powerful lesson for all of us.
So as we delve deeper into these modern-day connections, let's consider this. How can we apply Caleb's unwavering faith and courageous spirit to our own lives? It really does feel like Caleb's story offers this blueprint for navigating the challenges and pursuing the opportunities that we have in our modern world. So what specific lessons do you think we can take away from his experience and apply to our own lives today?
Well, I think one of the biggest takeaways is that we need to cultivate that unwavering faith that Caleb has. And by faith, I'm not just talking about religious belief here. It's more about having this deep-seated trust in yourself, in your abilities, in the possibility of achieving what you set out to do, even when things are uncertain. It's about believing in something bigger than yourself, whether that's a higher power, a cause that you're passionate about, or just the inherent goodness in humanity.
Yeah, it's like having that inner compass that guides us, that unwavering belief in our own potential, even when things around us seem to contradict it. Do you think that's something we're born with? Or is it something that we can develop over time?
That's a good question. I think it's probably a little bit of both. Some people just seem to naturally have it, that strong sense of faith and optimism. But I also believe that it's a quality that we can develop through practice, by consciously choosing to focus on the positive, to trust the process, to believe in our ability to overcome challenges.
So it's like a muscle that gets stronger the more we use it. The more we choose faith over fear, the more resilient we become. And speaking of resilience, Caleb's story also shows us how important courage is, especially when we face those giants in our lives.
Oh, absolutely. His story is like a call to action, reminding us that courage isn't the absence of fear, but the willingness to act in spite of it. It's about facing our challenges head on, even the ones that seem impossible to overcome.
It's about stepping outside our comfort zones, embracing the unknown, trusting that we have the strength to navigate those obstacles.
Exactly. And I think it's also important to remember that courage isn't always about those grand heroic gestures. Sometimes it's about the small, everyday acts of bravery. Speaking up for what you believe in, setting healthy boundaries, pursuing your passions even when people doubt you.
It's about those quiet moments of self-belief, those decisions to keep going even when we feel like giving up. And as we're wrapping up our deep dive today, I think it's kind of fitting to circle back to the beginning, to when the Israelites used that lottery system to divide the land. It really speaks to that idea of surrender, surrendering to something beyond our control, recognizing that we don't always have the answers.
It's a good reminder that sometimes the best thing we can do is just let go, trust the process, have faith that things will work out as they should, even if we don't understand how or why.
It's about embracing the mystery, the uncertainty of it all, and finding peace in the fact that we're not always in control. And, in a world that often celebrates control and certainty, that's a radical act of courage in itself.
I completely agree. So as we're finishing up this deep dive, let's take a moment to consider this. What giants are you facing in your own life? What challenges are you facing? What opportunities are calling you to be courageous? And how can Caleb's story inspire you to embrace the unknown, trust the process, and claim your own promised land?
Thank you all for joining us on this journey today. As we explored this ancient wisdom and how it applies to us, we'll be back next week with another deep dive. But until then, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep diving deep.